Hello, and welcome to today's Channelcast, Best Practices for Driving Monthly Recurring Revenue, brought to you by the Channel Company and Asigra. I'm Chris Dawson, and I have a few announcements before we begin. If you have any questions for the presenters, please submit your questions by typing them into the Ask a Question text area to the left of the slides, and then click the Send button. We'll address them at the end or answer them via email after the Channelcast if we run out of time. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event. You can also download a copy of the slides by clicking on the Event Resources button on your console. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon above the media player. We'll be providing a feedback form at the end of the Channelcast. We recommend that you disable any pop-up blockers so that you can easily submit your comments. Again, I'm Chris Dawson. Joining me today is Aaron Farragon, Executive Vice President of Asigra, and Dave Grazio, Consultant with the Channel Acceleration Practice for the Enterprise Strategy Group. Before we hear from Aaron, though, why don't we set the stage just a little bit? Backup, as we've traditionally referred to it, is very much a commodity. Lots of vendors offer it. Lots of channel partners offer backup to their customers. Oftentimes, we even see a backup service of some sort just being tacked onto deals as an afterthought. We add lots of extra services, right, for our customers, and this is just one that we sort of bundle together. It doesn't have a lot of value add, though. Again, as we traditionally think about backup, it does tick a box for our customers. They can say that, absolutely, my data is backed up somewhere. And for channel partners, we can say, yes, we offer backup. That being said, I think many of us will agree that it's time for a different approach. And this is where we start talking about disaster recovery, in particular disaster recovery as a service. So the focus here is on recovery. Obviously, that includes backup, but the focus is on getting your customers and your clients back online, up and running as quickly as possible after something goes wrong, whether that's a deleted critical file, a server goes down, or a complete site-destroying event. All of this means we have an end-to-end solution, and so it involves agents and facilities and services that get that data off-site, someplace secure, and then bring it back as needed. It's a really high value add for customers. Unlike straight backup that, again, just ticks a box, a lot of value going on here. We're finally able to the point where we can really leverage the economies of scale that are associated with the cloud. We've been talking about the cloud for many years now, and we've been talking about economies of scale there, but we're finally getting to that point where we have this secret sauce where we can reduce latency, we can make it fast, we can make it easy, and we can make it very cost effective. Of course, the beauty of all this using the cloud is that there's no real infrastructure investment, and yet you can still derive recurring revenue from this. Making this happen, though, requires the right partner. And we're going to hear from one of those right partners very shortly. But let's think about a few questions you can ask a partner. What sorts of service level agreements, or in this case, recovery level agreements, can you actually offer? And that comes down to what services your partner offers. What solutions are there that address the issues of latency associated with the cloud? There's some great ways to make this happen now to do it fast and easily. What sort of big granularity can you offer in your backups? Are we talking about having to bring back a full image, or can we bring back individual files? Because it's going to be the client who calls you with that one critical file that disappeared. They need to bring it back. How easy is it to manage and deploy the service? Are there big agents need to be deployed? Are we having to do things on site? Or can we really make this happen seamlessly? What kind of support is available from the partner? How frequently available, and who's providing the support? Is a partner channel only, or will they be trying to poach your business, as happens throughout the industry? And how does a partner protect your deals and revenues? Goes right back to this channel-only approach, but also ways that the partner can support what you do. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Aaron Farragon from Asigra.
Thanks very much, Chris, and thanks everybody for attending today. So on the last point, where we wanted to take this forward was really focus on ultimately the reason why partners deliver cloud backup services. On the one hand, yes, it's to tick a box in their portfolio of offerings, and of course also to meet customer demand. And so Asigra has been in business for 29 years now, and we have hundreds of partners all over the world that we work with. And in today's presentation, what we wanted to do is begin to talk about what are some of the best habits, the best practices that are exhibited by partners that are driving the most recurring revenue in the marketplace. And so that's what Dave and I are going to talk about today. And really share those with you so that you too can align yourself and use that information to see if these are the habits that you're doing inside your business for cloud backup services, or even for other services, not only necessarily cloud backup services, but your general cloud services approach. And if not, are there any gaps, and are there some things that you need to rethink and potentially work on? So I think habit number one is really to define your business model. As it pertains to the cloud backup market, there end up being three business models that partners have. I'll start with number 3 here at the bottom. That's backup-centric. So a partner's business is very storage-centric or backup-centric. They deliver cloud backup services primarily, business continuity, disaster recovery services. And so in that business, we call that cloud backup-centric. The second one is trailing complementary, and that's where the partner is really attaching cloud backup services to their portfolio, or they're leading with other things in their portfolio. And cloud backup is the last car on the train, the caboose. It's attached, bundled, and so on. And finally, leading complementary, and that's where a partner could be using cloud backup to open the door, make less margin with cloud backup, but just use it to open the door, get customers, new logos into their customer base, but really ultimately make their margin on other things in their portfolio. So understanding what your business model is vis-a-vis cloud backup or any specific service is really an important habit and something that we see that's happening in the best partners. Okay.
And Aaron, if I could just add to that, I think one of the things to really kind of take into consideration would be, looking at the customer experience that you want to be able to deliver, and really identifying who some of those key stakeholders are that are involved in that decision-making process as part of your target audience. And, as we've reached out to a lot of channel partners, particularly in this particular space, cloud service providers, what we're seeing is a rising trend whereby, over 3/4 of the companies now are involving non-IT personnel in the decision-making process. So we're definitely starting to see line of business decision makers, VP of marketing and CFOs getting involved, specific when it comes to their needs and requirements and what it is that they have and what they need to do in order to be able to hit those goals and really kind of tie back to some of the corporate objectives that are out there. So I think it's really also a paradigm shift, kind of moving away from strictly just a technology play and really reaching out and involving other key functional areas and functional leaders like sales and marketing, making sure that, at a top level, corporate objectives are met, but that everything else from the business model really kind of flows in terms of once you define that, that's really going to impact and influence everything from what resources are needed to what's the service offering you're going to have, what partnerships will you need, what go-to-market strategies you need to be able to implement, compensation models, et cetera. So I think really kind of looking at the target audience here and really taking into consideration those line of business decision makers and the impact and the influence that they do have, ultimately at the end of the day, is going to help you to have a more well-rounded business model and take into account those disciplines.
Right, totally agree. So, and in addition to that, I would say an important nuance here is to remember that the business model is not your entire business model for your whole business as a partner. The business model here that's important to define is the business model vis-a-vis the specific service that you want to deliver. So an MSP may have a leading complementary for their, remote monitoring and management service. Their backup service might be trailing complementary, but their main service or their business that's centric to them is going to be, network management. So it's not about understanding what your overall business is. I think that's fairly clear to partners. It's making sure that that it's clear between all the stakeholders, as you said, Dave, the marketing, the sales, the executive sponsorship, as well as the technical team, what is the customer experience you want to deliver and what is the business model. So, and the reason why it's important to get this habit done right up front very early is because everything else will flow down from here. If you select trailing complementary, that's going to be your business model for a backup service, everything else will flow from that. Your comp plan, your marketing, messaging, positioning, pricing, and everything else will be the same. So that's absolutely super important to get that first habit done. I think we have a poll question, Chris. Maybe you can help us.
You bet. And why don't we ask the audience how this works for them? Which business model do you have for your business? Are we talking now about? Sorry, just pulling this back up. We're talking about leading complementary, trailing complementary, backup storage centric. Is this? Do you not know? And that's okay if you don't know. And then also, are we talking about perhaps you don't offer this yet? Doesn't mean you shouldn't. Doesn't mean you won't. But you're not sure where exactly this sits just yet. No wrong answer here, right? Just a matter of really how you position this for your own business. Any surprises here, guys? Looks like we were pretty well split among three different responses.
No real
got an update now.
Yeah, no real surprises. I think that I think for most partners, vis-a-vis cloud backup services, trailing complementary seems. I think that reflects also just inside of a Seegras business. Most of our partners, cloud backup for them is trailing complementary, which means they're not leading with it. They're not necessarily opening the door with it. They're really kind of selling up or bundling it with other services and solutions, and that's very common and reflective in the industry. So.
Very good.
Yep. All right. So let's move on to the second habit of the most successful partners, and that is developing your SLA and your service description document. So this is super critical. Understanding what it is your customer experience is going to be. Again, making sure that it's not just the technical folks that are at the table defining that. A common error that we see is really just technical people reaching out to technology companies and saying, I'm going to decide what that customer experience, and then it becomes an afterthought or somewhere down the road that the marketing or the sales team begin to put their input. So it's really important as a habit to put the stakeholders in a room, make sure that you begin to document what the customer experience you want to deliver, and to define it very carefully. In a Seegras ecosystem, you could line up 10 or 12 or 15 service providers, all using common technology to deliver their service, but they're all doing it in a slightly different way. Is it a high-touch service? Is it a low-touch service? Is this something that you want to differentiate your company with? Do you want to do drills, DR drills, twice a year, once a year? Are you going to deliver it with an appliance or not? These are all kind of questions that you need to think through. Are we going to do a truck roll and install it? Are you going to do remote installations? These are all different aspects to the service that you need to think about, and make sure that you have clearly, and then look for technology that can help you deliver that customer experience to your customer base. Dave?
Yeah, and I would just add on to that too, Aaron. I think that, when you're defining the service level agreement, as Aaron had said, you really need to make sure that you're involving, some of the other key input stakeholders here. And as we've been talking to a lot of these cloud service providers to kind of understand what they're seeing too, one of the trends that kind of popped up in our discussions is that they're seeing now more than 50% of all employees actually dedicated to delivering billable services, particularly over the next 24 months. So I think it really kind of, reinforces the fact that you really do need to have, agreement between all parties in terms of what it is that you're going to be delivering, and making sure that it can be clearly articulated. So if your sales rep or if your sales team fully understands it and they see the value that you're delivering to customers, should be easy enough for them to be able to explain that. But then again, everyone needs to be on the same page. So if they were to talk to someone on your technical team or in any external marketing that you're going to do, I just need to make sure that you keep consistency in terms of, as you define that service level agreement, what it is that you're actually communicating out to customers so that, they're hearing the same message repeated over and over, and that there's uniformity in terms of what their understanding is of what is going to be delivered and what is not too. So I think just setting that expectation up front is really the key in making sure that you have a good, positive user experience overall.
Right. It's very important to make sure that the way you deliver the service is economically feasible. You also want to make sure that your service is adding value and is helpful to your end customer, and is it different? How will you be able to say that it's different or better? You know, the old adage, the better, faster, cheaper than what the customer already has today. It's very likely that your customers already have some sort of backup or data protection, quote-unquote, solution in place. It may or may not be a pain point for them if it's getting bundled. So these are all positioning and messaging statements you need to be able to make, and it all starts with what is your service description document and what is the kind of service level that you want to deliver. Are you going to be giving credits? Are you going to be giving guarantees? Making sure that your SLA is aligned with the right metrics. Sometimes a common error we see is that a service provider deals with recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, is thinking that their SLA has to be how fast can you recover. And unfortunately, the service provider is not always controlling every element of the recovery service. You can have an amazing vault, an amazing data center and cloud and all that kind of stuff, but if at the end of the day the customer's network and the customer machines are not fast enough to recover the data, if you've made your SLA based on how quickly you can recover, then you're going to find yourself giving lots of credits and breaching your SLAs on a regular basis. So again, the SLA and the service description are key important documents, and a very important habit that we see is happening early on. So let's move on to the next habit, which is dealing with compensation plans. David, maybe you can kick this one off.
Yes. So I think in looking at coming up with a good, solid compensation plan, there's sort of a few best practices that we've seen in working with channel partners too, is that taking a tiered approach and really looking at incentives not only at the individual level but also at the team level. I think that what this does is it, again, kind of level sets in terms of getting everybody on the same page, working together cohesively as a team. What it also does is it helps to kind of promote best practices so that as individual team members are finding success out in the field and working with customers, that information can be shared very easily amongst the team, because at the end of the day, everyone is sort of striving towards that common goal. I think that also, looking at making sure that compensation plans tie back to the corporate objectives so that the right behavior is exhibited, and that can be reinforced and really exhibited through the incentives that are given to the team. So whether it's growth within an existing account to try to maximize profitability, if it's customer acquisition, being able to penetrate into a new marketplace, trying to maintain particular customer retention levels and loyalty within key accounts. I think the other thing too that I would say in talking to some of the other cloud service providers is that making sure that as you're talking to both the sales team and also the technical teams, that there's equal kind of compensation given there, because they all play a critical role, whether it's the initial upfront pre-qualification, whether it's pre-sales, whether it's actually in the delivery and the implementation, or it could be in post-sales. I think too many companies tend to really kind of fall victim to just looking at incentives for the sales teams, and the technical teams kind of get ignored in that situation. But I think that if a good compensation plan would take into account being able to reward sales and technical teams, and again, I think that's going to also encourage collaboration between the two teams so that they're working together and there's one unified face that's given to the customer in order to make that experience as positive as possible.
Right. No, so totally echo that. A classic error that we see that you want to make sure that you're not making is to, as you said, Dave, not align or to misalign the comp plan with the corporate objectives. So classic error is we know that the executive team is trying to increase the number of new customers that are in the service provider's portfolio, so they're interested in going after new logos. Yet the compensation plan is very heavily directed towards margin. So sometimes those are not always, the same things. In fact, in many cases, they're not. If the executive team wanted more margin, they would, in their business, they would, then you should align the comp plan with margin. If you're interested in new customers or using your cloud backup service or your cloud services as just a vehicle to achieve new customers because you're losing customers or you need new customers, then make sure your comp plan is aligned with that. If it's, new top-line revenue, if it's wallet share, whatever that is, make sure your comp plan. In many cases, the comp plan is an afterthought, and the vice president of sales or the sales leadership are not, again, included as a stakeholder in the plan. What we see is 12 to 18 months later, everybody's sitting around the table talking about why is there not enough uptake of our cloud service. We think it's great, it's awesome, it's the best technology, it's priced very effectively. Why? Well, it's because the salespeople have kind of been forgotten, or the salespeople are actually driven to do other things and not, and not sell or not include in bundles. So there are clever ways how to make sure that your sales team are appropriately compensated. And again, it's not just the sales team; it's also the SLAs being met and other members of the team that can be included in comp plans to drive the right behavior. And in cloud services, it's not only the sales organization, because they very much depend on other aspects of your business and other key stakeholders, to do their job. So let's move on to the next habit number 4, because we were talking about sales professionals, and that's to hire experienced sales professionals, ones that understand selling processes, selling methodology, that have a selling methodology themselves. In many cases, we start to work with partners and we see that there is not a selling methodology. It's kind of cowboy style. There is no clear directive. And as well, the sales team is one that historically has sold products, sell once, collect once, versus sell once, collect every month. And it's really important to understand that not every salesperson is going to be able to make the transition to selling recurring revenue services. And so instead of waiting a long time and seeing negative results, you need to understand that in advance, obviously motivate them, as habit number 3 said, with your comp plan. But even still, having a good comp plan or the right comp plan, it's just not cut out for all salespeople. So don't underestimate the requirement of churning and having churn in your sales team, or bringing in brand new salespeople altogether into your organization that have experience selling services. I would not underestimate that. Dave, what's your findings have been?
So I think in this area, I can't, agree enough with what Aaron said. I think that solution selling, making sure that, your sales team, your professionals, they understand the value of what it is that you're delivering. And also they can really sort of speak to the market. I think that, you want your sales team to really be that trusted advisor and that guide, if you will, for the customer. So they need to really be kind of listening for specific clues and triggers to understand what business challenges, what requirements do customers have today, how are they able to really sort of translate that into the service offering that you've got to be able to address that. That's the way that they're going to be able to really gain consensus and trust and credibility with customers. And at the end of the day, a customer is going to want to do business with a company that understands what they need and they're able to really sort of address, as opposed to going in and really trying to sell them on something. You need to be a good listener in that case. I think that focusing on the key benefits, things such as achieving business agility and productivity increases, uptime, scalability, anywhere access, those are kind of the key points that, customers have requirements for today. If they're looking for a disaster recovery as a service solution, those are things that are going to be top of mind presence that are keeping them awake at night. And they also need to be able to, I think, cater to different audiences. So I think, in this particular case, as we talked about before, it's not just reaching out to the technical leaders, but also understand the business leaders as well. So the CFOs and the VP of marketing, and those line of business leaders that have key input into the decision-making process and being able to develop a relationship with them and have a conversation with them at the same time. So if you've got a well-rounded sales individual that can do that, they're more likely to be successful in their role in being able to develop those relationships at all levels in the organization.
Right, right. So how do you get to develop this, successful habit number 4? One of the ways that we have seen in some of our most successful partners is that what they do is they create a small, almost a commando group within the business. They don't allow all the salespeople in the company to immediately sell cloud services. They create a group, and that group is the only group that can sell cloud services within the company, and they basically become advocates or ambassadors for cloud services. They get relieved from selling the traditional things that the partner has sold, like products, or professional services or things like that, and they're very focused and compensated on just selling their cloud services. So they create a leader for that team, a comp plan for that team. They start to evangelize that, and then what happens is others in the sales organization are seeing that they're successful, and they want to also then sell cloud services, and slowly the taps get opened up and the floodgates get opened up, and then other salespeople in the organization have the ability to sell cloud services. So it's a kind of a clever trick by making selling cloud services is kind of exclusive to a group of leaders in the company, and then letting that grow, kind of expand beyond that group, after 6 months or 12 months, building upon that success. So I think we've got another poll question now. Chris, if you can help us push that out.
Definitely.
See what our audience is thinking.
Next point. So this next poll is, do you have a full-time experienced marketing professional on your team today? You finding that a lot of folks do, or is this something that is, maybe a bit more cutting edge for people getting into selling cloud services?
Yeah, I think in our because it'll be interesting to find out what people are saying, but we're seeing that the most successful partners actually have, and it's one of the key things that they've done, as we'll see in a minute, to differentiate themselves.
So it looks like we've got about a 25-75 split here. About 3/4 of the audience does not currently have a full-time experienced marketing professional on their staff.
Yeah, and again, not surprised to see that because it is very much a habit of the best service providers. They've kind of internalized and accepted that their service, they are the brand for their service, and they can no longer just rely on the various vendors that they've teamed up with to create a service, to develop the market for them, and to generate demand on their own. It's very different in the world of recurring revenue services than in the world of sell once, collect once product sales, because in the former, you are the brand, and you need to think about generating demand versus going to your customers and saying, "Oh, have you seen those ads from these big multi-billion-dollar vendors that sell you servers and switches and storage and networking equipment and whatever? We're a partner with them. We can give you some of that, or we can give you a quote on that." You can't do that anymore in the recurring revenue world. You need to learn how to fish, and it starts with marketing and investing in marketing, and knowing that marketing is not a short-term investment. It's not an afterthought. It's something that's killer. We were talking about investing in marketing and and hiring a marketing professional. I think that's an oversight in many cases. Habit number 5 is absolutely doing that, learning how to generate demand for yourself, and making sure that you're prepared to invest in marketing over the long term, and not just one quarter or when you see sales slow down or something like that. So, Dave, any thoughts on that? Are you seeing that too from partners that you're talking to?
Yes. Sorry for not being or cut out there before, but so as we've been talking to cloud service providers, what we're seeing is that cloud service requests, really tripling over the next couple of years. So it really kind of heightens the need for having a good, solid marketing plan and a strategy in place in which to do that. And as Chris was just saying, really, marketing should really be looked at as a sustained investment, not just sort of a one-shot deal. As probably many of you know, it takes multiple repeated attempts before your message is really heard and your brand can really be seen by companies out there today. So think of it in terms of conducting like a sustained email campaign as opposed to an email blast, or looking at attending conferences and industry events to network with prospects and customers and even partners, as opposed to just showing up and having a booth and presence at an event. And really looking at how do you leverage new channels like social media to be able to reach out to influencers and different parties, customers and prospects, as opposed to doing a blog post once a month or sending out a tweet as you need to. It really should be managed on a regular basis. And I think that the key when it comes to marketing, particularly when you're talking about recurring revenue streams and service offerings, is that making sure that your message is really kind of crisp and that you're showing relevancy in terms of what it is that you're actually delivering out there, and finding the right vehicles. I think that, as we talked before about the different audiences, whether it's IT professionals or business professionals, you really need to go to the source. Where are they actually getting their information from? Do they reach out to industry groups and associations? Do you need to potentially work with those companies? Do they get their information from potentially other colleagues and peers, so maybe social media or networks might be a way to kind of reach out to them? Are they attending industry events? So it's really kind of understanding your market and knowing where customers go to for information. Do they work with industry influencers and analysts, and do you need to develop those types of relationships to kind of get on the radar and to get some visibility and presence there too? So I think those are the things really, as you're thinking about a marketing plan and really investing in marketing, to kind of take into account and really sort of taking that holistic approach to how you actually externalize your message and really reach out to these audiences.
Right. I think as the poll showed, marketing is one of the toughest things to do for a partner. Historically, they've depended on the vendor to create marketing demand for them and their offerings. Clearly, investing in marketing is a key habit that you have to learn to do. It's part of the transition to recurring revenue. At the end of the day, a framework of thinking through this is, if you know what your corporate objectives are, why you want to deliver a certain cloud service, and you've got measurable targets, how you're going to generate demand is really the forte of marketing. So you have to have somebody in your business that's thinking 24/7, 365 about how am I going to generate demand so that I can achieve my measurable targets, so that I can achieve my corporate objectives that I want to get from delivering cloud services. So we cannot understate the importance of investing in marketing. And with that, let's go on to habit number 6, which is, once you've made that decision, having an integrated marketing plan is another very important habit to make. You need to have at least 3 or 4 elements to your marketing plan. It cannot just be emails that you send out. It cannot just be, let's show up at these 3 events, and so on. You need to think about, or your marketing professional or agency that you work with needs to think about, how do you create a multifaceted, what's called an integrated marketing plan that's allowing your customers to find you when they are researching and when they are learning about specific services that they're looking for, so that they contact you. And at the end of the day, that's the name of the game these days. So, this is super critical, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There are marketing plans that vendors that you work with or should be working with that can help you formulate them. There is content already out there. You might have already got a lot of content within your company, and if not, partners that you work with should be able to help you there. And having this integrated marketing plan is absolutely critical to generate the demand so that you can hit the targets that you're trying to, so that you can achieve your business objectives. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to just add to that. I think that the content marketing is really kind of a critical piece of this. And, one thing to kind of take into consideration, I think sometimes this is where, companies tend to sort of get, tripped up a little bit too, is that it can be a combination of not just, original content creation, but there's a lot of content collaboration tools that are out there, or content curation tools even, so that, as different influencers are really talking about this particular space, there's a lot of information from that you can pull and you can leverage, but you can also, put your own spin and really comment on that and really add value to the discussion. So as you're trying to kind of attract that share of voice and reach out to customers, really look at some of the trusted sources that they're going to, as we were talking about before. You can use some of these content curation tools to find some of that content, and really, I think, kind of be flexible and unique in how that information gets disseminated out, not only just on your website, but whether it's through emails or newsletters or, speaking opportunities, webinars like today, just different ways to be able to kind of get the message out to the audience. And the other thing that I would just add to that, again, in talking to some of the cloud service providers, is that marketing is one of the areas within the company that, everyone seems to have an opinion on. But I think it's important to note that, there are so many different touch points that customers have with different individuals and different departments within your organization, that I think it's really important as, a professional marketer or whoever is running that for your organization, to really reach out to some of those key stakeholders and to really solicit their input, because sometimes there might be information that they have that could be critical to whatever marketing programs or campaigns you have planned, that you might need to either rethink or make some adjustments. And I'll give you a good example. I was talking to a cloud service provider the other day, mentioned that someone on his technical team had an exchange with a customer. What they found out from that conversation is that there's actually something unique about the offering that they have that they hadn't actually really emphasized or thought as much about, and it wasn't something that they were highlighting in the marketing communications that they were putting out, and it really turned out to be more of a competitive advantage for them than they realized. So that information, could have just been siloed and stayed within the technical team, but instead they actually shared that with the marketing team to let them know and make them aware of it. And it was great because from there they were able to kind of update some of their messaging and include that information in their communications. Turned out to be a good competitive advantage and another unique differentiator for them that they were actually starting to focus on and highlight on a regular basis in more visible way. So, had it not been for that, that might have been another sort of best kept secret. So I think it's important to kind of get those inputs from the other stakeholders and be able to figure out what, if any, impact it might have on the marketing that you have planned. Right,
which is a perfect segue into our next slide, which is around execution. And then this is really the key ingredient of partners, hitting it out of the park. And execution is about not only having the technical team execute well, but it's executing on all fronts, all the cylinders working together to move the ball forward. And the sales team, the marketing team, and the technical team executing in the marketplace is basically the kind of the key ingredient to make all this happen. So you can have all the good habits, but if at the end of the day you're not executing, as you just explained in your example, then you're going to get less than optimal results. So super important, to execute well. We probably can't say that enough. So what are then some of the factors that you need to think about in selecting the right partner? We touched on this, Chris touched on this way early on, making sure that you don't have channel conflict, the partners, the vendor partners that you're working with, to make sure they're not also delivering a service, and that they're also not going to compete with you for your customer base, your own customer base. Make sure that that's looking over your shoulders and so on. What is their business? How long have they been doing it consistently? Have they tacked or pivoted their marketing or go-to-market strategy, and does this bode well or not so well, for how they may or may not pivot in the future? I think other things to think about are what kind of non-technology elements do they bring to the table for you? If you've got gaps around marketing and how to create marketing campaigns and plans and content and so on, is the partner that you're considering able to bring that to the table, or do they actually reserve that for themselves because actually they compete with you in the marketplace? So think about that. How can they short-circuit that information for you? Do they have an ability for you to talk to others, peers of yours? Do they create forums and summits and things like that where you can talk to and team up with other partners, or at least learn from them, and then over time begin to teach others what you've learned and some of your own internal best practices? So do they create the community and the environment that allows you to thrive and succeed, learn and teach over time? Do they have award-winning technology? Are they recognized in the marketplace? And also, do they have certification, technical certification for your engineers, so that they can make sure that they know about the product, and so that the service levels that they're delivering out to your, that you're delivering out to your customers are in line with the expectations, the customer expectations that and experiences that you're trying to deliver. So, other things to look here. We have a list here that you can read, but financial viability and these kind of things are always important. And so, this is the kind of stuff you need to make sure that you're looking at. Ask questions, talk to references when speaking about a partner. Don't just look at their technology. Don't just talk to them because they have local reps necessarily. Don't just talk to them because in the past you worked with them, and while they were a good product to resell, they must be a good product to use as a service provider. The requirements are different. It's not just all about technology. It's about their business model and their ability to help you develop these effective habits that you can then execute in the marketplace. All right.
And Aaron, so I'm just going to add one point there. I think finding companies that are easy to do business with, some of those characteristics, like for example the self-service partner portal, being able to have readily easy access to documentation, deal registration programs, and other factors and other components such as that. I think that the more that is available to you that you can leverage from business partners, those types of resources, being able to engage in doing joint selling and joint marketing with partners as well, particularly if they're recognized as a thought leader, and visionary, and being able to kind of do any sort of co-branding if it makes sense as well, to really kind of enhance and add to the value of what you're delivering is going to be able to help elevate you and get hopefully even more consideration within the customer base.
Indeed. All right, so I think finally you got to look at what the market opportunity is. We've got a couple of slides here on making sure that what is the market opportunity, and if it is it big enough for you to take advantage and really get your share of that market. So just around disaster recovery as a service, the market is absolutely growing. It's growing, pretty quickly. It's going to be, over $5.5 billion in the next couple of years. No doubt your customers and yourselves are looking for this kind of service. It's a higher value add. It's not just let me go and look for a place to dump my data somewhere. It's how can you help me recover quickly in accordance with my RTOs, recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives. So I would absolutely tell you that our overall market is growing, at least in the disaster recovery as a service and even in the backup as a service marketplace. It's still growing, although a lot of people are delivering it. It's very much growing. There's a lot of data that needs to get protected and more data that gets created every year. So again, it's something that you probably are either participating in or should look at participating in, certainly that your customers are out looking for it. We've created worked with IDC to create a document that helps you think about what is the business outcomes that you're trying to achieve, and then what is the business model that helps you, that you need to think through that lens of helps you achieve those business outcomes. So I encourage you to download your free copy of this. It's a business document. It's not a technical document, but it's something that the stakeholders sitting around the table need to be considering and looking at the opportunity through. After this webinar today, you're going to get a link to it so that you can download it and absolutely share it with your own team internally. And I think from here we're going to pass it back to Chris and see if we have any questions that anybody's looking to ask us, I think, at this time. Is that right, Chris?
That is exactly right. Thank you very much, guys. We do have some questions coming in, and encourage folks to go ahead and submit a question. We have a few minutes here for them. If you have a question, just submit it in that Ask a Question text box. So the first question is, are there any online sources or recruiting firms that you can suggest for finding experienced sales professionals?
Yeah, so Chris, this is Dave. Let me just give a couple thoughts on that. I think probably one of the best ways that we've seen in order for companies to find the right, sales professionals to kind of map to their corporate objectives and be able to sell this type of service offering, looking at professional networks, particularly LinkedIn. LinkedIn has actually become a very popular tool for that. They've got other features such as LinkedIn alumni tool where you can actually find individuals maybe that you've worked with in the past, and it'll show you exactly what their experience level is and where are they actually today, what organizations are they at. You can also connect with other peers and colleagues that may know of talented sales professionals that you might want to consider. There's also, more of the old school, but looking at recruiting firms that specialize specifically in trying to land and actually place top sales professionals. So some of those would be companies like Porter Group, Salesforce Search, Sales Talent Inc., etc. The other thing, too, is look at companies that are actually providing very specific and strategic sales training programs. Sandler, Miller Heiman, Dale Carnegie, Solution Selling. Those are companies that obviously have contacts with different organizations. If they've got their sales team going through these types of training programs, those are the kind of individuals that you're going to want to be able to recruit and attract to your company. As we were talking about before, they're going to have the right skill set, the right mindset when it comes to how to sell a service offering such as this when it comes to recurring revenue models. So there's just some ideas to really kind of take a look at, but I think that reaching out to a lot of peers, colleagues, using tools such as LinkedIn, and really looking at either recruiting firms or even companies that provide strategic selling training programs are going to be a good source for you to initially sort of take a look at and consider.
Right. Dave, if I can add to that, you can also talk to the vendor partners that you're working with or that you're considering to work with to see if they have any content to help you train your existing team. So are there playbooks, are there sales strategies and so on that they can adopt? Do they have sales training programs that are specifically suited to hone the skills or introduce skills, door openers, lines of questions, objections handling, and so on to their partners as well? So these are the, don't rule out the vendor partners that you can talk to see if they have any information and guidance that they can provide as well.
Good. I have another question. I think this one's going to be for Aaron. Do I need to own my own data center in order to use Asigre software?
No, specifically on the Asigre software, you don't. You can co-locate. You can run your Asigre software platform in a colo facility. You can run it in a third-party cloud like Amazon or Azure or what have you. So no, you do not have to have your own data center. You could even resell the services of an existing Asigre partner if you don't want to have your own Asigre, instance and build your own cloud backup service. We can team you up with a partner that has a wholesale go-to-market strategy, and you can work with them.
Fantastic. All right, another question. Again, this is probably going to be again for Aaron. Does Asigre provide partners with templates for service-level agreements and descriptions?
Yeah, so those are two of the templates that we provide. We have a whole series of them, and they're basically business processes and best practices. Again, working with lots of partners all over the world in different markets with different business models. Those are two that we absolutely provide. There's many more legal documents, playbooks, proposal documents, things like that. Cost calculators, all various types of sales, business processes really, and best practices. DR drills, pricing plans, these kind of things that you need to get to market quickly and productize your offering to make it compelling and competitive. Now, the templates that we provide are not, you just change the name. They're there so that you think through how you want to deliver your service, and going through that process with somebody that knows how to guide you through it is necessary, because then you kind of make the service your own. Those are two out of a whole series of them that Asigua provides partners.
Very good. And we've got time for one last question, maybe get a few last words from both of you on this one. What is the best approach for figuring out how much budget we should allocate for our marketing services, or for marketing our service?
Dave, you want to go first?
Sure, no problem. I don't know that there's any one right answer in terms of what allocation should be given to marketing. But if you look at in general, companies can spend anywhere from like 1 to 10% of their sales volume on marketing. I think that it's important to make sure that you build a marketing plan that really kind of links back to the corporate objectives and the strategy that you want to be able to implement. But I also think that you want to make sure that as you're looking at building out that budget, that you do have allocations in the right areas. So depending upon where the audience is that you're going after and where they go, it might be a mix of different variables such as industry events and conferences. But then there's also other ways to be able to reach them that are more low cost, things like webinars and email campaigns and even social media as well. So I think one of the things that I would suggest is really kind of taking a look at, and you can also talk to some of your vendor partners as well in terms of some of the areas that they invest more heavily in from a marketing perspective. But if you're looking at different campaigns, making sure that there's an investment over a sustained period of time. So if you're going to do things like emails, for example, that is done over 90 to 120 days minimal, so that you're able to get that traction and be able to get response out into the marketplace, as opposed to just doing it one time. So I would say make sure that the budget can really kind of be spread throughout the year, and you've got some more continuity to it to be able to see some results and do some reporting up in terms of what ROI was actually achieved and what were some of the successes and things that didn't work as part of that marketing plan.
Right. If I can just add for the last kind of 30 or 45 seconds, I think that figuring out the budget is directly tied to what are the measurable what are the measurable targets that you want to achieve. And a quick mental exercise is if your measurable targets are, I don't know, round numbers, I want to achieve $1 million, regardless if it's a year, a month, a week, whatever that is. If it's just $1 million, what are the size of customers that you've got that you want to target? What's your price? So ultimately deconstruct that revenue number into certain number of customers. These could be existing or new customers, but it's some number of customers. And then you say, okay, if I have to close, again, round numbers, 100 customers over the next 12 months, because that's the target, because 100 customers will get me my $1 million. If I know my conversion rates are, let's say, 5 to 1, so I get 5 opportunities and then I close 1, I'll need 500 sales-ready opportunities. And then again, if I use a 5 to 1 ratio for leads, that means I actually have to have 2,500 leads to create 500 sales-ready opportunities to close 100 customers to achieve my target. So then you figure out, if those are my targets, does my marketing plan and do I have a budget to generate 2,500 leads? If you don't, and you all of a sudden see that your marketing plan, requires for you to spend more money than you're budgeted, change your measurable targets. Don't make pie-in-the-sky measurable targets thinking, oh, no, I'm still going to keep my 100 customers, but I don't have the money for it. The two work hand in hand. The budget for marketing is driven by what are the measurable targets you're trying to achieve. So that's a starting point, and I think working with your vendor can certainly continue to shed more light on it.
Fantastic. Perfect ending. Thank you so much for that presentation, gentlemen. And to our audience, thank you for attending today's Channelcast, brought to you by the Channel Company and the SIGGRAPH. Check out upcoming and on-demand Channelcasts at crn.com/channel-cast/index.htm and facebook.com/channelcasts. In a moment, we'll take you to the SIGGRAPH website, where you can download the IDC paper featured earlier on the Channelcast. This Channelcast is copyright 2015 by the Channel Company. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted, if that is the case, the Channel Company and SIGGRAPH, who are solely responsible for their content, and the individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and their opinions. On behalf of our guests, Aaron Farragon and Dave Grazio, our sponsor is SIGGRAPH, and our virtual production team, I'm Chris Dawson. Thanks so much and have a great day.